from my sawdust filled shop, and boy do I have the sawdust. If you need sawdust, come on down. I'm at 5 Mountain Lane, Manasquan, New Jersey, and I got sawdust up the butt, all right? Anyway, what we're going to talk about today is, this is a short video on the 5 steps to building a box, all right? This video is just talking about the 5 steps, all right? The next video is going to be the actual work itself. So, but let me go through the 5 steps, all right? We had already made up the frames. You watched my previous video, so you know how to build a frame. All right. Step 1 of building a box is the measuring and the layout. You've got to formulate a plan, and I like to do it on paper, of what you're going to build, what the project is going to be, and what materials you're going to build it out of. So that's basically what we call measuring and layout, all right? Know what you're doing before you get a material list or something together. Don't just get a number in your head and start chopping or whatever, all right? Get a plan, get it put down on paper. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is we're going to use plywood or sheet goods for these boxes, all right? So what you want to do now is to figure out how much material you're going to need and what do you have on hand in your shop. I have a rack that has full sheets in it, and I also have what I call a remnant rack where there's partial sheets that have already been cut or drop-offs, leftovers from a previous job, all right? So that's what you want to do. Step number 2 is figure out on paper, take your original layout and figure out how many sheets you're going to use and how you can best use any remnants or partial sheets. Because if you just start cutting up full sheets without laying out a plan on how to lay out, we call optimizing. If you do, you'll wind up filling your remnant rack up and use more full sheets than you really needed. And sheets cost money. Plywood's expensive today, so you really want to think about and plan how you're going to take all the pieces that you're going to cut out of the sheet and how you can best use up remnants from the previous job, all right? That's step number 2. Step number 3 is cutting up all those parts. Now you're going to go to your slider, if you have one, if you're lucky, they're beautiful, or a regular table saw, or at the least maybe a track saw, all right? Festool has a beautiful one. I have a couple of them here. They're great. In some cases, they're actually better than a sliding table saw for breaking down full sheets, better than a slider. So if you have a track saw, Makita makes them, DeWalt, Festool like we have, they are great, they're safe, they make beautiful clean cuts and all, but that's your next step. How are you going to cut up these sheets and get them to the size you need for your box, all right? And that also includes step number 3 is doing whatever it takes on the inside of the sheets. We dado our sheets. I dado my shelves into my sides. You're maybe going to use dowels or biscuits or whatever, but that milling has to be done before the box can be put together. So yeah, run your dados, put your biscuit slots in or drill holes for dowels, whatever construction method you're going to use, that has to be done in this step. That also includes drilling for line boring. All right, this is going to have adjustable shelves. So I have a line boring machine that I drill my holes. You might just be using, if you don't have a line boring machine, it could be as simple as drawing a center line and then going and marking every inch and a quarter, inch and a half, whatever increment you want, and drilling by hand. Or you could buy, they have several jigs available on the market, Rockler, Rockler.com, they have some jigs set up in either plexiglass or metal, where you can just clamp it onto your side and using this jig and a template, you can just drill multiple holes in a sequence of either 1 inch or 32 millimeter increments, all right? And that's usually either 5 millimeter holes or 1/4 inch holes. Right? I use for the most part metric, the 5 millimeter. They have all kinds of clips in both configurations, whether you're using a metric, 5 millimeter or 1/4 inch, all right? So that's all. And then you have to also take into consideration how you're going to put your box onto your frame. In this case, these particular boxes, I use wafers or biscuits. I route out slots in the back of the frame, and I routed slots in the front edge of the carcass itself, all right? And I'm securing that with number 10 biscuits. Another way most of the time, I'll run a groove. I'll dado a groove in the back of the frame, and then I'll rabbet the front edges of the sides. And usually it's like a 1/4 inch thick by 1/4 inch deep rabbet. And that's a very good, strong method for putting these things together, all right? The reason I didn't do a rabbet now, I'm using 1/2 inch material, and some of these sides are right flush with the inside edge of the frame. And because I use pocket screws to put the frame together, if I try to run a groove in the back of the frame that close to the edge, my table saw blade is going to cut those screws, and I don't want to do that. So that's why I opted for using biscuits in this case, all right? But yeah, you have to figure that. Now, you might also just want to butt it, all right? Put glue on it and put a staple or nail right straight through the face. That's acceptable too if it's going to be, say, painted or laminated, all right? I have no problem with face nailing something if it's going to be painted, because you can fill it with Bondo and then just paint over it, you'll never see it. Or like I said, if you're laminating, you put it in Formica or Wilson Art or any one of the high pressure laminates over it, nothing wrong with doing that, all right? If it's going to be a stain or a clear finish or whatever, then you don't want to see nails, okay? But yeah, that's a viable option considering what your finish is going to be. All right, so step number 4 is sanding. All right, it's so much easier to sand these parts before you put the box together, because it's difficult to get in all these inside corners, whether using a square pad sander or an orbital disc around. All right, it's very difficult. Definitely sand your pieces before you put your box together. That's not to say that you're not going to have to come back after the box is together, maybe do a little touch-up. You maybe would have had some glue squeeze out that you cleaned up and you want to sand up a little bit, dress it clean. Or maybe you got some shop marks in there from your clamps or hitting a hammer or drill or something. So you might have a little touch-up with sanding, but do the main sanding before you assemble your box. The last step, the final step, is the assembly, all right? That's where you're going to put the box together. If you dado like I have, everything just lays right together, perfectly square, just run glue in your grooves, put it in there and pin it and screw it or whatever, and everything just falls together properly, all right? If you've got dowels or biscuits, that also lines things up, makes it very easy to assemble your box, all right? Like I said, in my case, I'm dated, so I just put some glue in my grooves and I tack it first with some pins, and then I follow up with either 1.5 or 2-inch screws, all right? If you're using dowels or biscuits, you maybe just want to clamp it or pin it or nail it or screw, whatever. That's the final step, is putting the box together. So that's your 5 easy steps of building a box, all right? So that's it for today's video. Although before I shut the camera down, I'll walk you over to my plywood rack. I'll show you the full rack and my partial, my remnant rack. But other than that, this is short. Following this video, I'm going to be putting up in the next video, which is starting to cut up my plywood. All right. So you're not going to have a long wait to see it, but I didn't want to make a long. I'd rather make this a series of maybe 10-minute videos than a bunch of half-hour videos. All right. So yeah, let's go make some sawdust. Okay, I just want to take a minute to show you my plywood rack. Years ago, I bought some 1/4 inch thick steel angle iron, which is 2.5 by 2.5 by 1/4 inch thick. Yeah, what I did, I welded the top 3 shelves and the bottom shelf. They're welded solid. All the other shelves in between are resting on 2-inch plates. They're 1/4 inch thick by, or I'm sorry, they're 1/2 inch thick. 2-inch by 2-inch plates, and all I did, I drilled a series of holes 1/2 inch in diameter, and like we do the adjustable shelves in your cabinet. You know? I drilled those and I bolted these plates on, so that the angle irons can rest on those plates. This makes it so I can adjust them down the road. I didn't know exactly what size openings I'm going to need, how many shelves I'm going to need, so I did that so I can have some versatility as far as down the road making changes if I needed to, all right? Now I also have a remnant rack here. What I did, I took some 1x2 and I doweled up a framework. 1, 2, 3, 4. I made 4 frames, about, I want to say they're 8 foot 3 inches high by 4 foot deep. So I made up these frames flat on a 1x2, and then I glued and screwed 3/8 plywood to each side. So what I did essentially, I made up partitions, all right? I made up 4 partitions, and I just glued and nailed pieces of solid wood on the front, just, you know, so you're not looking at the edge grain of the frame, all right? And then I made up shelves, which are 3/4 inch melamine, and I put channel iron, aluminum channel iron on the front edges, so that they don't get banged up as I'm sliding the sheets in and out. Plus the melamine means the sheets slide in and out very easily on the melamine, and it doesn't wreck it like it would if it was plywood. And all I did was I rested those on some cleats, which I took some one by one, and I cut a slight bevel on the front edge, and I glued them, and I nailed them onto the partitions in a permanent spot. So what I did, I gave myself multiple size openings, you know, assorted different sizes, because invariably you get stuff even in here. There's pieces in here that don't belong in here. There's lots of cardboard. There's remnants in here that should be over here. So things get met. You know what it is. All right. So like I said, I'll go in there 3 or 4 times a year, and I'll straighten it all out and get it all looking good again. So, but yeah, that's my plywood racks. Let's go make sawdust.